What's up, everybody? Welcome to 90 Minute Cocktail Hour. I am your host, Mike Guccione. I am the owner of Driftwood and Dune Photography. I specialize in wedding and portrait and family photography. So definitely feel free to check me out on Instagram, check my website, all that fun stuff. This is episode 10. Can't believe we've made it 10 episodes. This is awesome. Thank you, everyone, for your support. Thanks for the listens, the likes, the subscribes, all that fun stuff. Speaking of that, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you follow the podcast, rate, and review the podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, again, follow, subscribe. I'm still not sure what you do on Spotify. And on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment. It definitely helps boost engagement. So anyway, administrative stuff over. I'm super pumped that this is happening today. We've been kind of going back and forth on like scheduling and like different things coming up. We both have, or we all have pretty crazy lives in terms of like work, business, family, and I'm really excited to get into that. But today I have Justin and Stephanie from Tone Media here, and I'm really excited to get to talk to them about all things, wedding, photo, video, and family life. We have a lot in common there. So I am gonna kick it over to you guys. Introduce yourselves and yeah.
I'm actually surprised the kid has not banged on the door and come in and disturbed the podcast yet, but I'm Justin.
Did you just see who crawled in behind me?
It's a good start. But yeah. I'm Justin, and this is
Steph.
And we own a business called Tone Media. We film weddings. We've done over 300 weddings, and it's been our lives for the past 10 years?
Yeah, 10 plus years.
10 plus years. And It's been a whirlwind, but we're all for it and we love it. And we're truly blessed to do the job that we do.
Yeah. So you guys are the first couple that I've brought on the podcast and interviewed as like a couple. So I'm super excited, for us to have a conversation together and to kind of see how this goes. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here was we, worked a wedding together back last December, I want to say. And I was second shooting for Alex Peterson, Adalia Photography, a mutual friend of ours. Shout out, Alex. And you guys were the videographers that day. And I had actually Alex just kind of was like, oh yeah, and we have Tone Media helping us out that day or shooting video that day, so it's going to be a great day. And I was like, oh cool, because I had never met you, but I'd actually heard from several people that you guys were awesome to work with, and 100% you were both amazing to work with, and you also produce incredible work. But I also had really sometimes the conversations at weddings are a little surface level with the other vendors. But I felt with each of you, to get collectively and also individually, I had some really in-depth conversations with you about, life and kiddos and being in this industry. So, I feel we just kind of scratched the surface, but I also, kind of made a little note in my head of okay, I think there's a lot to unpack with these people.
We traumatized you.
I'm sure we could traumatize each other with all of the crazy stories that we have. But let's start here. I want to ask you two, individually and then collectively. And, you guys can kind of go in any direction that you want with this. But the way I always start these things is, I guess in your late teenage years, what were you thinking in terms of career path, what you wanted to do with your life? Was anything video or photo related even on the radar yet, or did that come later? So I guess, Steph, do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Well, it's funny because in our teenage years, we were actually together because we are high school sweethearts.
Oh my God. Stop.
So we've known each other since we were 15 years old, and we've been together since we were 16 years old. So
Wow.
we have really kind of seen each other like grow and been with each other through like all of those like times of like developing and figuring out like what we want to do. And, looking back at it now, video is actually something that we were really interested in. We would bring around like those little like cameras, digital, like small little digital cameras to like all of our like little friend gatherings.
The
And
Sony Cyber Shot.
Nice.
That ring a bell? No.
we would basically bring that like around and like our like little friend hangouts and stuff. We would make like little videos just to like have as a memory and just like fun things like that. And then actually at senior year, I like collected all of like the photos and the videos from like we had a nice like friend group that we both had, and I created this like senior year video, and I like put it on DVDs and gave it to everyone in like a case and stuff like that. And so
Oh my God.
video wasn't like necessarily something that I thought I would go like and what I would do for like my career necessarily, but I guess I just like the creativity thing of it, and that being creative has always been a part of my life. And I actually ended up going to school for interior design because I just like loved just like spaces and like redesigning and organizing and telling stories really through a space in that aspect. So that's actually where like I took off after high school and kind of like and I worked in the industry like for a little while with interior design as well.
Designer. And for like really good companies too. She's like super talented in that regard. We not even scratched that surface of like interior design. She's so talented. But I brought her to the video side. Like Steph said, in high school, like it was something that we always did. And I don't know if you know a band, Dashboard Confessional.
Yeah.
It was song Remember to Breathe. I literally shot a music video of us like we broke up in the music video. Like this was years and years ago, and I'm like, it was just for fun, like literally just for fun. And then
Well,
like,
you had to do it for a video class, I think.
Yeah, my major was radio and TV. God, radio and TV. I'm like an age on myself, but it was so I did go to not a film school, but it was like my major was in communications, but I had a minor in the TV world. But literally we just do these fun things, and just looking back now, like Steph said, it's like, wow, it kind of led to this, which is stories, and it's truly like a dream.
So you've awoken the emo teen in me, and you just brought back like rushing back like all of the nights where I would just sit on my computer on like AOL Instant Messenger, just like blasting Dashboard Confessional, and my parents were probably like, "Oh my God, is he okay?"
Yeah, no, my brother put me onto that, and it was something like, and listening to the music now, I'm like, wow, this is it's pretty extra, but it's so nostalgic to listen to it, and it was something that again, it was like something that we went after, and we built it from there. So
yeah. So all right. So Steph, you're doing interior design work, and Justin, were you like when did you get into weddings? Like when did that start?
Weddings didn't come till maybe a little bit into our careers. So 2015 is when we really started. But so between 2010 and 2015, I actually worked for the Jets. And when I did the New York Jets, where I did video content, I would do highlights with the players and all that. We had a lot of free time during the off season. I was still full time, but weekends I wasn't doing much. I'm like,
Well, that's not really how the story started.
It's-
Of why we started.
Oh.
No, I think that like an important piece to put into like perspective of like why we actually started doing wedding videography was actually okay. So we, he's working in video, I'm working in interior design. We're working these 9-to-5 corporate jobs, which was a lot. We feel like we had good jobs. We graduated, like, had student loan debt, and why do we feel so behind still? We felt like we were making a decent paycheck, but we kind of just were figuring out like what, where do we see like our life going? Like, I don't know, like why are we not able to like buy a house yet? And like all this kind of stuff. And so we were like, we basically found out about Dave Ramsey. So not sure if you know about him, but he's like a financial guru. And so we read his book that literally changed our life. We read it on our like honeymoon that we like went on later on after our like after we got married.
Yeah, 2014.
Yeah, in 2014. And it was like the total money makeover book. And we basically, from there on, we just like went into his plan to like basically attack the student loan debt. We knew we had to pay it off. And so we literally lived our lives so different than all of our family, all of our friends. Like they probably thought we were crazy because we literally like we moved to a smaller apartment that was cheaper. We literally didn't go out. I literally remember bringing like $100 to like in cash to go buy groceries because that was like our budget, you know, for the week. Just doing like the whole cash envelope system. And then we were like, okay, what else can we do? Like we cut back everything. What else can we do to like make extra money to like kind of fast track this a little bit? And so it was like, okay, I'm going to pick up some babysitting jobs that I could do like literally after work. And Justin was like, well, I like to edit. Let me like reach out to see if I can find some editing jobs. And one of them was for like a big like company that did wedding films. And so they would send him a hard drive. And I think the biggest like wake up call, because we just got married, right? And so he was literally editing these videos that were like over a year old from like the couple.
Let me just stop real quick.
Like
the reason, look, she's getting into the good part, but I will mention that I had student loans that I didn't particularly, I kind of sugarcoated. I'm like, yeah, I have some student loans. When I told her it was like over 100,000, she was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a lot. Yeah. So that's kind of why, this the only reason why we're like, let's go for this.
Yeah. So in total, between like everything between student loan debt, credit cards, our the puppy that we had gotten soon after, you know, we got married, had gotten sick, and that was like literally like almost 10 grand of like medical bills.
Surgery, yeah.
And we were just like, what? Like, you know, what's going on? So yeah, so he started editing these films. The footage was like so horrible. Like we felt bad for these couples. We were like, oh my God, it's been a year since their wedding. You know, they're having someone randomly edit this film who doesn't even know. And so as he's like doing this, he's giving me kind of jobs in between where he's like showing me like how to use Premiere Pro to kind of help him out to get more films done so we can make more money, you know, by doing more. And, you know, I think we were both just like, I feel like we could do better than this because like they were just not that great. And even though we don't have any experience in it, we had a couple of friends because we were, you know, at the age where everyone's getting married. We got married at 26, which is like fairly on the younger side, I feel like, especially nowadays. And we reached out to a few friends. We're like, hey, do you have a videographer? Like, we'll come shoot your wedding. I think you borrowed cameras from like
from the Jets.
From the Jets.
Shout out to the Jets. I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but Ubbs, my boss, like he was like, you could take them. So I took them and used them, and I was basically, it was just like
I mean, the first one was like 700, maybe $700, $750
like
or $500 or something like that. And so, I mean, to us, we're like, oh, that's great. And then really it was just like, you know, they loved it. And then they would tell another friend and another friend. And like literally
Word
like
enough.
From the first wedding that we like shot that year, we had like 10, like that first year, like not booking out, but like weddings that we shot like that year, which was like crazy to think about it. And that is truly what happened. Like it solely got built on like word of mouth. We realized like how much we wanted to change the industry of like, you know, getting rid of that like typical like videographer like kind of, I don't know, what is it like
how do you say it, like the big tripod?
There's a stigma. Yeah, there is definitely like a stigma, and I think like a mental image that a lot of people have that, you know, if you've been in the industry or, you know, or if you've been to weddings, you know, over the last like, well, I guess around that time, like 2015, 2016, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So because I feel like that a lot of people we worked with, because we were like so different, they were like, wow, like you guys were like so great to work with. You were so easy to work with. Like we had this videographer with this big tripod in the middle of the aisle, and like who would like stop and start first look, and you know interrupt like everything.
Mike
and
knows.
so that really like we paid.
He's like, Mike's like, I have stories to tell you.
We paid attention to that kind of stuff, and I felt like we were like, I don't know, we were passionate about like changing that perspective for a
Yeah.
lot of photographers. And so because we were like that, I think a lot of photographers then started recommending us. And so we just got busier and busier to the point where like we eventually years later had to make a decision, whether or not we would like go full time with this job and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So
So first thing, Justin, I'm pretty sure you're past the statute of limitations with having stolen property from the Jets. So I think you're in the clear there.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Might have to cut that.
Um, what's that?
Might have to cut that part out, but
Yeah. um, but no, I can definitely. So I actually got married in 2014 as well. So like again, we share a lot of parallels, and around that time, for me, I was still dabbling in photography. It was still like kind of a hobby slash. I wasn't really sure if it was something I could like really fully embrace as like a career. But the weddings still kind of intimidated me a little bit. And I think I had this fear of, you guys kind of had this cool experience of like looking at it from the outside, right? And like getting to see things on the back end and being like, you had the skill set and you had the finished work of like other people, and you kind of had this idea of like, wow, I think I could probably do better than that. And that's, I don't know, I think that's really cool. I feel like I haven't heard of people kind of like backdooring it that way. Um, but like one thing that I feel like a lot of people share in common is that like, going to a friend or like having a friend ask you and, doing it like super, super cheap. And then, having it kind of snowball from there. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, it was like, so, all right. So from a professional standpoint, and also from like a relationship standpoint, and you can get as like detailed or not detailed as you want, whatever you guys feel comfortable sharing. But like, what were some of the challenges that you guys faced like early on? Again, from like, let's start with dealing with the things that kind of come along on a wedding day. Like, what were some of those like early challenges?
what of like working together?
Um,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess like if you're talking about like working together as like a husband and wife team type of thing, like some of the challenges. I mean, obviously, I feel like working together as a husband and wife team is very like, there is a handful of people out there that do it, but it's also like unique in a way. And I feel like a lot of people I talk to, they're like, I don't know how you could work with like your husband or how you could work with your
hmm
wife and things
Yeah.
like that. I feel like for us, because we've known each other for so long, that we were always like best friends first, before we like, were a couple and got married. So I feel like we always like love spending time together. We balanced each other out in like a lot of different aspects of like how working together. But then also too, I feel like there were other parts where it was like, learning that like, it's different if you're working with a second shooter, like speaking up in terms of like, hey, can you go over here and get this? And I could, when you're working with like your husband or your wife, like I feel like it's easier to kind of snap at them and just be like, what's wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? Like, get up and go over here. And so I feel like those were like some challenges early on that like,
Hmm.
you know, I
figuring
feel
out the
like there was
roles.
a couple times where like, I was maybe too open with him or too like I guess like forthcoming in terms of like reviewing an edit and be like, hey, why did you do it like this? Like, why didn't you
Hmm.
get it like this? And, I realized that I maybe was being a little bit too, I shouldn't be like speaking that way, that I actually discouraged him like for like a little while, like in midway where he was like, I'm not sure if I want to do weddings anymore. You know what I mean?
So, and
Oh,
I'm can I interject for just for
Yeah.
1 second, because I just want to like preface that question by saying that you know, me and my wife, like I would also consider my wife my best friend. I haven't known her, like we didn't know each other growing up, but we had like a very like solid friendship prior to getting married, and like our relationship was kind of like built on that. And I think that's like a super important piece for any couple, right? Any couple that's getting married. Um, but we've also thrown around a lot of ideas with each other about like things that we could do together. Because she also is kind of she's very like smart and organized and has a really good mind for like creativity and like operations and like processes. And even with that, even with like our solid base of like friendship um and like complementary skills, we still have, yet to be able to like successfully, do anything in business together. Like she's launched her own business. I've been doing my thing for a while. So I guess like what I'm saying is I think it's really hard to do. And I admire people who are able to do it successfully and, spend the amount of time that I'm sure you guys spend together at home and then, spend those working days together too. Like I think that's really amazing, honestly.
Yeah, I'd say too, it's not always easy. It took a long time for us to get to a place where we're like on the wedding day, we literally just look at each other and we know exactly what we're like each other saying with our eyes. And it's like to have that skill over the past 10 years, it takes time because it wasn't always like that. And I think the biggest thing was sort of figuring out our roles in the business and what are we good at. For the longest time, excuse me, I'm a little sick, but for the longest time, I did not do inquiry calls. It was just not my thing. And like, that was Steph's specialty. She just nails it. And just like through time, I'm almost challenging myself to like better in that regard. Like, let me hop on some inquiry calls to really connect with couples. And it's something that like, just like hearing her over and over again on these calls, I'm like taking mental notes and I'm like trying to use like all her like tactics and techniques. And I'm like trying to put my own little like funny, like, thing on it. And don't book any, I don't ever book any, but no, I'm kidding. But so figuring out what you're good at in the business is vital. And then once you guys figure that out, like for husband and wife teams, it's like you run with that and you kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like knowing each other's strengths and weaknesses. So it's like, just like you talked about with like your wife being like more organized and things like that, like that's me. That is my strength and that's probably his weakness. You know what I mean? And so I think you're able to define your roles a lot better when you guys can actually define that and you both see them and both agree on them. You know what I mean? So I feel like that really helps a lot of the
Yeah.
times.
Well, you also touched on like the way that you communicate with each other and that being like really important. And I know not even in terms of business, but just in terms of the way that she and I communicate with each other. Like and this is probably true again for like a lot of couples. There are like those growing pains of, how, if you're gonna survive as a couple, you have to find ways to like healthily communicate with each other. And again, like we went through our growing pains with that, like even before we got married, right? Like there was that time where before we moved in together, where she and I, like, I think we just had to, we went through like a really rough patch and we both knew we wanted to make it work, but we also really needed to find ways for us to like safely communicate to each other how we were like really feeling in certain situations. And that was like, yeah, really difficult to navigate. And I think outside of like romantic relationships and like in like a business perspective, there are people who, so I, again, I do a lot of freelance work for like a lot of different studios, and there are times where I feel like I'm given feedback and it's received really, really well because it was communicated well. And then there's times where I've been given feedback and the way it was communicated to me like made me really defensive, right? And made me feel like, well, there's a reason I did it this way and da 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 da. Instead of just taking the feedback and being like, okay, like next time, I'll try to do it this way. So, I think it's really cool that the skills you guys are like practicing are applicable in both realms.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's like we're almost each other's boss in a way. It's like, we can, help each other out as far as edits go. It's like, even with editing, it's so subjective. It's like, she has a style and I have a style and like kind of figuring out like what works best for both of us, and then also first and foremost our couples. And once we figured that out, it was like, oh, it's kind of making sense, and we can kind of build off of this. But yeah, it's like to kind of run your own business and like be your own boss. It's not always glamorous, you know. It's a lot of hours, it's a lot of figuring out roles, it's a lot of, you know, new issues come up every now and again. And there's sometimes I think if I just stuck with like a 9 to 5, you know, would that be something like that would bring me as much joy as Tone Media does? And I don't think it would. I really don't.
No, I don't know. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'll speak for myself. Like, I figured out pretty quickly that I was not built for a 9 to 5, and the universe also kind of like nudged me out of that. And I've talked about it on like previous episodes how, you know, I graduated with a marketing degree, and, you know, I was working in like marketing research for a bit, and after a year I wound up getting fired from that job. And, you know, at the time it was like this whole existential crisis of like, well, who am I? You know, like, because, you know, had done the whole, you know, high school, college, you know, get a job, and, you know, kind of like created my identity around that. And, you know, once that's kind of like taken from you, or, you know, removed from you, from me, I should say, you know, I kind of had to like face this really bigger question of like who am I outside of that? And, you know, fortunately I landed on photography, and, you know, it's been an amazing ride since then. But there was like a year of unemployment where, you know, I like kind of rebuilt myself from like the ground up. And like all that to say, you know, if I had tried to go back into like a 9 to 5 at that point, it would have been trying to put like a square peg in a round hole. Like, you know, because I had just like done too much outside of that to ever go back to that. And, you know, I think there's also something to like, once you, you know, I kind of liken it to like becoming a pickle after you've been like a cucumber. Like once you become a pickle, like you can't go back, you know? You know, like once you get a taste of what it feels like to do something that can like sustain your life and also like really impact other people's life for like the better, I don't know. It's like the best. It really is. There's nothing better than it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely like relate to that. I feel like there were times in my like, so we are just to take a step back, like me and Justin are basically the first generation in like both of our families to be like to own our own businesses, to be entrepreneurs. And so, you know, it's not like something that we were inspired by like a family or anything like that. And
Which
so
there's nothing wrong with.
there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that, but you know, you are kind of like you are different. And so I feel like, you know, you're meant to like graduate college, go find your 9 to 5, you know, like all of that kind of stuff. And even though I loved what I did, I like worked for some like really great architecture firms. I feel like I just always felt a little stuck because I was such a hard worker, but I felt like I wasn't getting, you know, like paid for like all of my like hard work or like recognized for that. And then also just seeing like all the higher ups who would literally be like, that was like their life. Like they were there from like the sun, you know, the sun rising to like the sun setting. Like, and I'd be like, oh my God, like, do they have kids? Some of them didn't have a family, or if they did, they just like weren't with their kids. And I'm like, if I'm gonna like work my way up the ladder, like, do I really want to be that higher up? Like, do I really want that life? Like, I would like a family someday. Like, I would like kids, and you know, I didn't really know what that looked like. I never thought that I would be able to like literally be a stay-at-home mom, but still like run a full-time business like on our own. So it really has been an absolute dream. Nothing that I like thought that was possible, and so I feel like by having our video business, it really allowed that like flexibility and that like freedom to be able to navigate that like next phase of our life of, you know, having kids. So that was great.
Yeah, and that's kind of like an underrated thing that we, you know, didn't really think too much about when we didn't have our kids. But now, being in that kid, you know, life now, it's like see them grow up, to, you know, see all the moments. Like, I know we're lucky. I get how lucky we are, and, you know, we're blessed. So
Yeah.
So that's a great segue into navigating this industry with kiddos. So remind me, how old are your kids again?
They are 5, almost 4, and then 2.
Okay.
5, 4,
Yeah.
and 2.
So your lives are probably even more insane than mine is. So, mine are, so for those listening, mine are 3, 5, and 7. Um, so, yeah, so I guess like what kind of take me through the timeline of that. So, where were you at in terms of your business, like when you started, planning for a family, and then, what did that transition look like for you guys?
Well, thankfully, it was a little bit of an easier transition because when we got pregnant with our first, the pandemic hit. So she was 2020. So it was kind of the perfect transition for us to be able to like stay home with her, really like for a long period of time,
The
which was
first year
great. Yeah,
straight.
like almost the first year. So that was like an easier transition. But it was still like a little bit hard just trying to navigate all of those like hard conversations that we had to have with couples.
Hmm.
Mm,
If our like pregnancy kind of ran into like their wedding date and stuff, like that was really hard to navigate because for us, it did take us a little bit of time to get pregnant with our first. We got pregnant, and then we actually had a miscarriage, and
Mm.
so then we had to like try to get pregnant again, and so it was kind of like we did the best that we can to kind of navigate through those like booking like a year plus out of like those weddings, but at some time, like at some point, like we were starting to get like a little bit older and start our wanted to start our
Hmm.
family. So, it's something that it's never really like easy to navigate that, but I feel like thankfully, if you communicate it well and you book the right couples, a lot of times they will be like understanding and
Receptive.
just yeah, and having I feel like just having that like network of people to have back you up to be like, having another videographer team that could step in like if you needed and things like that, which I'm sure working with a lot of different photographers, like that network's so important.
yeah. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. For me, like one of the blessings that came out of COVID was being able to build my network because there were so many people who needed help, who needed to lean on other people during that time because of, the obvious, like someone would call the night before being like, hey, I just caught COVID. I need someone to cover this wedding. Um, you know, and that happened on like more than one occasion. But yeah, I think like being, part of a team, but also building your network with people that you trust is huge. Um, but I also will say, you know, I guess, couples and women in this industry who have to kind of plan around like starting a family. I just have so much like respect and admiration for that because, as a guy, like when me and Kim were trying to, start our family, we also had a hard time getting pregnant. We also, got pregnant, miscarried, went through like IVF, did all that stuff, which in and of itself was like an emotional roller coaster. Um, but for me, like I was fortunate in that once we knew like what the due date was, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna block off like 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after, and I should be good. But like, for women and for you guys, like that's a little bit tougher
Mm.
to navigate.
Mhm.
And again, I just have like so much respect and admiration for people who have to have those conversations with their couples. And like you said, I think there's a way to do that for sure. That and have it go well and have it well received. So I think it says a lot about you too that like a lot of those conversations went well for you guys.
Yeah, and I think the whole aspect of us being a husband and wife team definitely helped because it wasn't like, if it was just my company and I hire out second shooters that like, just, I wasn't going to be there and they were going to have someone that they didn't maybe know. At least for both of us, we always like kind of went into it saying that like, worst case scenario, if something happened, we're like, whatever to me, like you have Justin, you know what I mean? And I feel like that also
Mm,
goes for just like sicknesses and things like that. Like there will always be like one of us, like God forbid, like you know what I
mhm.
mean? So I feel like that was also helpful of like being a husband and wife team as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, so once you did have your first, like what was the biggest transition with that? Like how was leaving her for the first time and like going to a wedding for the full day?
Yeah. I mean, it was
It
hard.
was hard.
Thankfully, she was a little bit older because, of the pandemic. We were able to be home with her. I mean, she must have been maybe over like 6 months old. I can't even
Hmm.
remember
It's all a
back that
blur.
long.
It's
I
like
know it's like
that
so
was
much of a
two
blur
kids
already.
ago, a long time
But
ago.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
one kid, piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
I see the challenges. It's funny because like we don't have to necessarily be at work from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. We just have to be away for technically 1 or 2 days during the weekend, but it
Hmm.
is an entire day, right? So it's most of the time, like for you leaving there to get there early and traveling home, it could be 10 to 12 hours that you're gone. So it's basically, the entire day plus like bedtime routine, which I feel like is always a big ask for anyone, who is watching your kids. So
Yeah.
thankfully, my parents come and watch our kids and have watched from when we had one, two, and then now three. They don't live super close. They live like an hour plus. So they do have to come and, usually we get home late. So they have to spend the night at our house and things like that, which is great. But it definitely creates a lot more, of just like planning and stuff ahead of the wedding because you're having someone come over. You got to make sure that there's breakfast for everyone and preparing the kids' stuff.
Steph
So,
always says the preparation to get to the wedding day is the most work
yeah.
on the wedding day. But when she's on the wedding, it's like it's a piece of cake. She's
Yeah.
just there. But like getting all the lunches and this and that, I'm like, she's a machine in that
Yeah.
regard.
Just trying to make sure everything's ready, like for them, It's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I'm so blessed that my wife, we so for a while we were kind of on like opposite schedules. She was a teacher and I was obviously like working on the weekends and Fridays were a little tricky, but
Mhm.
she would always be home like on the weekends when I was working. And then before we had Summer, our third, we she decided to resign from teaching so that she could be a stay-at-home mom because she just kind of felt like she wanted that time with the kids and we were in a place like financially where not gonna lie, it was a stretch, but like I don't know, I think kind of like what you were saying before, Steph, about kind of deciding to like prioritize the time with family, like that was really important to us. And fortunately, what I do is, I can be free mostly during the week, to be there and, help the kiddos get on the bus, get off the bus, hang out with them, do whatever activities we're going to do during the day. And, fortunately, Kim is really good at taking care of them while
Mhm.
I'm gone for the whole day, essentially. And it's funny. One of my sons, like whenever I have to leave for a wedding, like they're a little bit older now. They're 5 and 7, my sons, and so they're kind of like starting to understand where I'm going and what I'm doing. And because they've been to like a couple of our friends' weddings now, and he'll, if they really don't want me to go, they'll be like, "Dad, just call out. Like you don't have to go." And because they're so used to seeing me, like they're so used to me being around, which is like amazing. It's such a huge blessing as like a dad to like be around
Yeah.
for my kids like all the time. And you know, again, there's not like what you were saying before, Justin, like not a judgment against like my family or like what they chose to do, but my parents, my mom was definitely around more than my dad, but like my dad worked, a 9 to 5 and he commuted, and so he was leaving at like he was always getting home late, and by the time he got home, like a lot of times I was getting ready to go to bed. So like really the only time with him was like on the weekend. So yeah, I mean, like when I get home from a wedding, like there's times where I come home from a wedding and they're still awake, and I'm like, oh my god, like please go to sleep, like please just go to sleep. Um, but like what a blessing to have them like used to me being around and to have them like want me to be around. Like that is it's amazing.
Mike, I'd say the one thing I love is playing Mario Kart. And the amount of Mario Kart I play now with my daughter and my son, it's like, I didn't think I'd ever play that game again, but now I'm doing that kind of stuff. So like, there are little things like that where I'm like, I never thought I'd be playing video games again like this. And it's like the little things like that that make it like extra special.
Yeah, those like full circle moments where I'm like rewatching movies with them that I watched as a kid. Like my oldest son is like really into baseball now, so I'm showing him like Rookie of the Year and like Little Big League, and getting to like experience those movies like through his eyes again, like and like The Sandlot. Like he was obsessed with The Sandlot for a while. Like yeah, it's so fun to like see it through their eyes. And like we live like pretty close to we live in like a little neighborhood where we have like a little beach in our neighborhood. We're like close to the shore, and so like they're actually introducing me to things that I would have loved to have done when I was a kid. Like we go crabbing up at the little bay beach, and so like our lawn is covered in like crab traps and like kayaks and like fishing stuff. And like I did a little bit of fishing when I was a kid, but like with Luca, like this summer, like every single day, he's like, "Dad, let's go fishing. Dad, let's go fishing. Dad, let's go fishing." So I don't know. I feel like in a weird kind of way, and not to get like too, I don't know, like psychological or whatever, but I feel like he's kind of helping me like relive a childhood that I wish that I would have had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
The one thing is, the one sad part is, my kids are Jets fans, so we don't win a lot. And Harper's like, "Daddy, why don't the Jets win?" And I say, "Harper, just be an Eagle fan."
That's really funny. Oh my God, I love that. So, all right, so your family's growing, right? You've had your first kid, and we could probably share like many a war story about doing weddings with kiddos, but I guess like as a couple, like how do you continue to navigate that today? Like weddings, family, relationship, like what does that look like for you guys today?
I think we're still figuring it out.
Yeah, I don't think you
I don't
ever
think we ever
like have it
out.
figured out. But I think, it's kind of, we're always transitioning as the kids are just transitioning into new ages and developing too. And so I think for us, like a big thing this year is we're just kind of thinking about kind of like what's ahead for us in our business, like as our kids get older, and there will be probably more activities on the weekends, like sports and different events and things that are happening. How are we going to navigate that with like shooting weddings? And so I think for us, like it is actually slowing down in, how many weddings that me and Justin actually book ourselves. And we started like basically an associate team this year. And so that helps us to kind of navigate that so we're not out shooting so much. But, we obviously have more like editing and back end stuff to do here, which we're learning how to navigate as well. But I think that has just kind of been a natural transfer, like, next step in our like business, because at the end of the day, like the kids do need our attention. And when they have parents who, are own their own business and we absolutely love what we do, like we could work 24/7. Like I literally have to tell myself like sometimes like it's okay, like you can go do something else, like because the to-do list is always there, because if I don't put stuff down, I do feel like if I'm frustrated with like not being able to get something done, or I have a long to-do list, I definitely feel like I get more frustrated with the kids easier, because I'm just like, they're testing our patience all the time. And so it's just like, oh, I can't get this done and I can't get that done. And so, we're trying to navigate, all of that. We never really had, to be honest with you, we've never really had childcare consistently. Our kids didn't go to daycare. They stayed home with us because we both worked from home. So we really just like tag teamed, of like, okay, you go work, I go work, we switch, like that kind of thing. But now our oldest is in kindergarten. Our 3, almost 4-year-old goes to like a little preschool, but it's just half a day for a few days. So like, that's been great. So we're realizing the importance of like helping them gain independence and like be surrounded by other kids, get their energy out. Like that is really good for them. And then it's also good for us, like, because sometimes when we're all together all the time, like that can be tough. So it's like it's healthy to kind of do that. So we all could all fill up our cups, and then when we're together, we could all be like happier and spend more quality time together, you know?
Yeah, I can so relate to that, especially if you've worked, a couple wedding days in a row. If you've done like a double weekend or a triple weekend, the kids don't understand that. Like they, come Monday, like they demand your attention,
Yeah.
and they demand the same amount of attention whether you have, 10% of the tank or 100% of the tank. And those days where you've given your all to your couples, right? Like, and you said something before about, like giving your all to like a job, like a 9 to 5, right? And I feel um like on a wedding day, like that's kind of how I am, right? Like my energy, like my focus is like there 100%, and so when I come home, right, like I feel pretty depleted, and I feel like that, that like social battery is like depleted, my energy is depleted. I don't know, I feel like maybe some days if it's like a really really great wedding, like I can kind of ride that high for a day or so. But for the most part, come like Monday or Tuesday, like I'm crashing, and I'm crashing pretty hard, and that's when like the snaps happen. That's when like, you know, I like lose my patience in ways that I'm like not proud of. And similar to like what you guys were doing, like prior to this September, like our kids were home with us like all the time. It was just my oldest who was going to school. He's in first grade now. He's in second grade. But now all three of them are finally in school for like the first time. Full day, like out of the house. But yeah, like I get that. Like being home with, especially like my younger two, 24/7, like having to tag team that with my wife when, she's like starting to, start her own business, and my editing queue is backed up, and we're both like trying to vie for, like time to get those things done and like navigate those conversations, and also like make sure our kids aren't sitting in front of the TV all day or sitting in front of screens all day, like going out and like doing things, getting them around other kids. Yeah, it's really hard to navigate.
I'd say that just balancing both, like your business and like your kids. It's like you want both to be like priority. Obviously, your kids are more priority, but right now we're kind of like in that phase, like Steph mentioned, like we're trying to grow, like we're doing associate thing, and we want to provide LUTs and courses and do all these things that like people who've done this for over 10 years, like they start to do these kind of things. So it's navigating that and like putting all your attention to that, and then switching over to kid, dad, mom mode. It's a lot, and we're figuring that part out. And it's like things like you said, it's like figuring out ways to make sure the kids are happy and not killing each other, and also being as creative as possible at night, like whether we're editing, whether we're on a client call. It's trying to be on your A game like 24/7, and it takes a toll. I mean, my hair is very gray if you can't see it, and I can tell on your beard.
Justin, yeah, do you see this? Like, for those who are listening, we're both showing off our gray hair and our gray beard,
But
my gray beard.
I'll jump into that and just say that like something that has helped us navigate that and we've been really good with it this year is we do a Sunday like night meeting. So Sunday we try to like make our like Sabbath day in a way where like we really do try to like rest. If we don't have a wedding, then sometimes it's pushed to a Monday. But we really go over our to-dos, what's on the calendar for that week, like literally just tackling the week that's ahead. Because I think that can turn into a lot of pain points for couples, either working together or even like you said, where you have, your wife is doing her own business and you're doing your own business stuff. And I feel like sometimes a lot of tension can be brought in where it's like, well, I didn't get enough time to work. Like, what are you doing? Like, can you watch the kids? Like, so by almost going over our to-dos and being like, okay, here is like, the stuff that I need you to do this week, and this is the stuff I'm doing, and like, okay, midweek, where are you on your to-do list? Okay, I didn't get to touch my to-do list because I've been doing all the kids stuff, so now I need you to jump in so that I can like have focus time, like those kind of things, because if that communication is not there, then I can definitely see where it could be really, really hard for people to kind of navigate working together or like running their own businesses together, you know?
Yeah, um, sometimes we're good about doing it regularly. Other times we kind of fall off. But we also try to do like a weekly check-in where we go over finances and we go over that week's to-do list, or short-term, long-term, like what needs to happen. And oh my God, like what, yeah, that is like so important for us as a couple and as a family. And we also like, I don't know, I'm not going to say we're good at it or that it even happens that often, but we also like, as much as we can, try to include our kids in those conversations too, so that they can like start to take ownership of, you were saying before, like helping them to be a little bit more independent. So, if someone asks like, hey, where is like such and such, instead of being like, oh, I don't know, or like, or I'll get it for you, just being like, oh, like, where did you leave it?
Yeah.
Where do you think it is? Or like, hey, I'm doing something right now. You either need to wait 10 minutes or you can do that yourself. And I think the hardest thing about that is like when they do start to do it, a lot of times they don't do it the way that you would want them to do it, or they do it like really messily. But like, I don't know. I feel like that's honestly, that's probably the hardest thing about helping them be independent, is like letting them be independent. For me anyway, is like kind of letting go of like the way that I would do things and just like letting them do it. And and like when I'm tired, when I'm, in that like rundown post wedding phase, I'm like, just let me do it. Just please, just let me do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think once you have three kids, I think you can it's a little bit easier to let that go. Like for me, because I am like a very like organized, like I like things the way that they are. I like things to be clean and things like that. And then when you have three kids, it just like, it's almost impossible to keep up with that. Otherwise it'd be like cleaning and organizing all like, every
Yeah.
hour of the day. So,
You're like
you know, um,
literally like with a vacuum, just like cleaning up behind a tornado all the time. Like you could just like follow them around and constantly be cleaning.
I know. So you kind of like, I've learned to get better at like letting that kind of stuff
Yeah.
Letting it go.
slide.
So you actually have already kind of touched on this, but one of the themes that's come up in like a lot of the episodes of the podcast is, like what your next step is and like what things kind of look like for you guys long term. And in the last episode, I just like flat out admitted like I personally like I really don't have a plan. Like I don't know what my I don't know what my long term plan is. Right now, like my calendar is full, and I'm grateful for that. And honestly, like this podcast is probably, if there is a plan, like this is part of it, because this has been like such a blessing for me and like so fun to do something, outside of photography, outside of the, I mean, I guess it's still kind of in the wedding space, but it feels like it's kind of separate from it in a way. So, and you guys have already touched on it with like starting an associate team and maybe starting some like education stuff, but like, yeah, like where do you guys see yourself, in the next like 5 or 10 years
Yeah.
as you progress?
That's a great question. I mean, it's definitely something that we have been like more so focusing on this year rather than past years for some reason. And so one has just been thinking about, yeah, like exactly what do we want to be doing in like 5, 10 years? How many weddings do we want to be shooting and that kind of stuff? And, I think we kind of really see the benefits of tapping into like the educational world. I don't think we were ever really interested in it prior. But now it kind of feels like a natural like next step for us. So that is definitely something that we're interested in. I mean, we absolutely love YouTube. We both watch YouTube all the time, and so we kind of really like would love to. We tried
Just see the
tapping it,
value.
tried to do it earlier this year, and then life just gets busy. But we really want to like dive deeper into that. We also started kind of another like sub company this year called Noble Post. So we actually do wedding video editing for some other local wedding videographers, actually. So
If
that has
if
been
you
like,
guys are looking for an editor,
yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
honestly, that one's been really fun because I feel like sometimes it's actually a little bit easier to edit other people's footage and film than like your own because you're not so personal to it, you
Hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that we're like looking to grow. It's our first year, so we're kind of learning the ropes of that and just trying to figure it out. And then lastly, we are like we have some real estate properties, so we do have like some rental properties. I mean, so we are kind of like tapped into real estate in a way, which is kind of relates back to my interior design background as well. So that is really fun and something that we want to continue doing as well. So also, it's funny because it all kind of ties back Dave Ramsey to the book that we had read
Hmm.
originally. He was a big real estate investor, and so he actually like inspired our like journey on that. And so we've done a lot of like renovating houses, house hacking, living in them, moving, renting it out, like that kind of thing. And so we are just trying to find some creative ways to like continue that with today's market, especially. It's been a little bit harder. Before 2020, it was a little bit easier, but that's just something that we're both like really passionate as well. So I kind of feel like it's nice to just like have our toes dipped in all of these like little areas because we are big believers on just kind of diversifying our income and not just like putting all our eggs in one basket. And so
Hmm.
this way, if like some things are, go south for a little bit, like at
Slow
least we have
down.
other
Yeah.
things to like lean on.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys are like building an empire. I think that's beautiful. I
Well,
think
I
that's
don't
really
know.
really cool. Um, but no, I agree with that. But like I said, again, I've said this on past episodes, but like right, wrong, or indifferent, I've just always been very um, focused on like the present moment and have a hard time kind of like planning long term for the future. So but I do think it's really important, especially with like you said, kiddos getting older. Weekend activities starting to kind of pop up, and me already feeling like I'm having to miss some stuff that I don't really want to miss. Um, Finding ways to like carve out weekends. You know, whether it be like once a month or at certain times of the year, to make sure that I'm getting to spend time with the family when things are happening, when like those things are happening. But also, I think long term, like I just turned 40 this year. Um, Fortunately, like physically, I'm still feeling good for the most part. Like I feel it a lot more after again like those double weekends and stuff, and like weekly chiropractor visits are a must at this point. Um, but like I don't see myself going at this pace, you
Mhm.
know, 10, even like 5 years from now.
Hmm.
So, but I still, and honestly, I don't know if the educator route is for me. And I think, if anything, if it is going to be education, it's going to be more along like this vein where, hopefully people are like learning something from a conversation, as opposed to me making some sort of, I don't know, course that I could sell or something like that. I don't know if that's me. But I do applaud people that do that. Um, but I do think that eventually, like something's going to have to give, and something is going to have to change. And I also don't think like the associate route is for me either. But who knows? I don't know. I was talking on here about Crooked Horizons a few episodes ago and how like I would never do Crooked Horizons, and then I started messing around with it over the summer, and I'm like, oh, I could see where you would do that. Like, you know, that's kind of cool. But actually, that kind of leads me into another theme that's been coming up, and I'm curious to get your guys' perspective of it because I think you're like a little bit younger than me, but like not by too much. Um, like, how are you guys? So I'll say this: I feel like there's a big generational gap between me and like a lot of the couples that are starting to get married now.
Mhm.
And like one of my big fears is that they're not looking for someone like me, right? Like they're not looking for someone who's like an elder millennial, kind of like personality. So I'm curious, like, have you guys like what have you guys noticed around that? Like, how have you been navigating that? Like, what does that look like for you two?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I have like felt the same way as you, because I definitely feel like my some of our like email responses used to be like in the beginning where it's like, oh, it wasn't that long like ago that I was like in your shoes, and I'm like, I got to take that away because it's been a long time,
It's been like a decade.
So yeah, just navigating that has definitely been something I've been thinking about. And it's funny, I feel like now being a parent, I can actually relate to a lot of the parents now, and I feel like that's something that we're trying to, I guess, connect with the parents more on like the wedding day, and even prior, like for booking. I feel like that was something that used to scare me. It's like if a mom wanted to talk to me, it was like, oh my God, like I'm so nervous to talk to her, like a mother of the bride, like during an inquiry, like that would. And now it's like, I would love to talk to a mom. Like, I feel like I could connect with her. I feel like we can relate. I can, like, I don't know. I feel like, in terms of like the age perspective, like in a way that I could just connect more. And so we've definitely been focusing on that a little bit more, like during wedding days, just making sure that we're talking to the parents and stuff, because believe it or not, like maybe it's not necessarily like the couple or the friends that, we'll get a wedding from. I mean, hopefully they'll recommend us as well. But like those parents, like they will go tell their friends who their parent, like who their like daughter or son is getting married, and they're going to recommend you. And a lot of times, like if you are doing a little bit more of like higher end weddings, which we are trying to do as well, the parents are going to be paying for the wedding. They're going to be almost involved in the booking process. Sometimes we get parents who book us and the couple are not even involved in that, you know what I mean? So I kind of feel like that is a little bit more like how we're, you know just seeing that transition for like the age gap. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or?
I'll go on TikTok and see what the trends are, and I'll go to the groomsmen and I'll start doing the dance. And, I try to stay within, I try to stay hip, and it doesn't work. But like Steph said, it's like we're trying, we're just who we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not trying to like be anybody else. But if the couples like us, they'll book us. If not, like we respect their choice. But we just I don't know.
I mean,
I
we
think
just sell it that like,
No.
hey, our experience, like, and that is true. Like the more experience, the more weddings you've shot, you can navigate, all these different situations that come up on a wedding day. And I feel like obviously that is a benefit of being a little bit older and working in the industry for a while, right? Rather than someone newer where something comes up, they don't know how to change the settings real fast or like what to do in a situation. And it's like, okay, maybe every situation is always different, but like you've had something similar or like you just know by experience what to do.
Yeah, and I think Justin, what you said, like, you are who you are, and that's like not going to change, right? And like I've made several attempts to, like kind of jumpstart my TikTok, and I just can never seem to like maintain momentum with that. And so I've just kind of accepted, like, all right, unless someone wants to like fully take that off my plate, that's just not going to be that's not going to be my skill set. Like that's not going to be something that I do. I'll go on Instagram all day. I love like I still love looking at other people's like still photos. For me, like that's really powerful. I love looking at, like your guys' work and like a lot of your peers' work, when you post your teasers, like those, like for me, like I love looking at that like finished, polished work. But I also like I can appreciate, some of the more like, and I think this is like again the more like Gen Z is kind of looking more for that like raw, real, like authentic, connection point. And I try to do that on my stories. Like I try to show up on my stories like as real as possible, while not like embarrassing myself. um, but yeah, it's like a really fine line to walk between like being yourself, but also like showing up. I guess is tough.
I'd say I started this dad channel, Tone Dad. If you follow it, check it out, Dad. And it's all like embarrassing stuff. But I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I'm having fun with my kids. I want to be real, and it's like something that like brings me joy. But like, I'm real. I'm myself, and I just feel like I don't, I don't want to sugarcoat it. I'm just like who I am, and that's kind of what got me to this point. So. Steph will say too. It's like we're real, and we want to relate to couples, and we try our best to stay relevant.
Yeah, and honestly, I think being married for 10 plus years and having been in the industry, again, also for around 10 years or so, it gives you like a sense of comfortability, but also I feel like it also um, helps you like prioritize the things that are like really important. Because you've seen a lot around the wedding space, but you also have seen a lot in your relationship too. So I think it just gives you like really good perspective on like what's important on a wedding day, and I think the couples that are like meant for you like sense that, or like will sense that in you, because ultimately I think if it were me, like what I would want, like I would want to feel connected and comfortable with like all my vendors on a wedding day. And that's not true for everyone, and that's okay. Like some
Yeah.
people, they want who they want because they produce a great product or because of a certain price point, and like that's fine too. But for me, like my personality, like I put a big emphasis on connection. So I think that couples that are booking you and booking me can kind of sense our perspective and our experience on the business side and on the like the personal side too.
Yeah, that's something that we definitely really try to focus on is the experience part on the wedding day because I definitely feel like that makes a huge difference. And a lot of couples don't like realize that when they book a vendor that like it's almost like just as important as getting that like final video at the end of after the wedding. Just knowing that they had like great people to work with and that they felt comfortable, like all of those kind of things that you were talking about. So
Yeah, I'd say that's like I always mention to Steph this, like, the client experience is like for me top tier. I just want them to feel so comfortable and just like loving the day. And then the video, if it comes out great, great.
yeah.
But like it always
Yeah.
does. And when they see themselves, like, and we get the emails, and that's what makes it
Yeah.
blessing.
Yeah, but it's funny because looking back at how our business like has evolved and like the footage and everything, we used to focus on so much more of those like just like eye candy shots, which are
Mm.
amazing to have. Like we love those, like the portrait shots and
The
all of that
drone
kind of stuff.
shot.
But the more like experience that we have, the like deeper, like the longer that we've been doing this, and like you just said with like family and all that, we realize the importance of like more of those like candid, real,
Real
raw moments.
moments.
And so just focusing on a lot of that like throughout the day and just being like super aware of like things happening of like waiting for mom to cry or like just people laughing and hugging and just like constantly like looking for all those like emotional moments. I just feel like that is something that we have just been like really
Like
like
hunting for.
yeah, just like hunting for and just been so drawn to like now in the day. Like we used to like not really like focus on a bunch of like shooting cocktail hour, which I'm like, why did we never do that? Like there's so
Mm.
much like, fun that happens
Yeah.
there and just like looking for the conversations and the hugs of people who haven't seen each other in a while and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's been really fun to like have that part evolve in like our business, I guess, because we're always looking. We don't want to just like keep doing the
Doing the
same thing
same
over and
thing.
over again. Like we want to grow and evolve. Like that's what keeps it fun, keeps it interesting, like makes us be creative and things like that. So
Yeah, and I think what people, couples don't realize is like those, you call them like those hero shots or like those, like really like amazing, like epic shots. Like those look great on Instagram and they look great, when you show them off. But a lot of like, and they shouldn't think about this, or they haven't had to think about this, but like getting those shots sometimes involves like really annoying things, like having to like really impose yourself on the day to like get those shots, or to like set up lighting, or to set up things that just kind of like interrupt the flow of the day. So yeah, they're great to have, but also like the trade-off is, you know, there it might not flow very nicely into the rest of the day. And I'm of the same mind that the longer I do this, the more I'm drawn to those little in between moments, right? And you know, the more I see my job as a photographer, or even like if you look at it this way as like a creative director, or you know, whatever. Like my job is to kind of tease out the essence of like that couple, right? Or the essence, or if it's a portrait session, like the essence of that person, right? And so yeah, I'm taking photos, yeah, I'm like capturing the moment, but like we're also creating space for the couple to like really fully be comfortable and be themselves. And when they feel that way, like those little moments just happen, and it's not necessarily going to be because of like a direction that we've given. It's going to happen like in between those directions. And you know, you guys are fortunate in that like you can just kind of like roll through that, like you can like roll through that whole thing. And I guess your job is more on the back end, where you're kind of like, ooh, there it is, like, you know, like pulling out that little like look, or that little smile, or that little tear, or you know, the little hand gesture, like whatever it is. And like that's, I don't know, I'm with you. Like I feel like those are the things that, while they may not have like big impact for other people, they mean the world to the couple.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A lot of times, so on the wedding day, I'll know in the exact moment it's happening. I'm like, "Yep, this is gonna make it in the teaser. Yep, this is gonna be in the highlight." And I literally like I'm searching for those moments. But I'd say for, you know, when we're posting our videos, it's like if we can evoke some kind of emotion, whether that is laughter, crying, if we can have that emotion to the viewer, it's like it's going to be memorable for them and whoever's watching, especially for the couple. But we try to like sprinkle those in, and by the end of that teaser, by the highlight, you're just like, wow, I felt like I was at this wedding, and I just lived it, and I want to watch it again. You know, that's kind of how we want them to feel. So,
But I think something to put off of that is like, I'm not sure, you know, if you even like have thought about this or have realized, but like I think for us sometimes it could be challenging because as a videographer, especially in the way that we shoot, you know, we are letting the photographers be the lead for the day, right? And so we're working with all different photographers, ones who are more posy, ones who are like, you know, super energetic, just like all
Rapid
different
fire.
types, who are just like, who shoot really fast, like in and out, go forward, that, you know, jumping in front of our shots and whatever.
Yeah.
And, but at the end of the day, we're basically, you know, we're still like, we still have to produce like, you know, a product that like our couples have seen all over. But, you know, I think that can be challenging sometimes to get the shots that we need, you know, if the photographer maybe isn't, you know, just giving that good experience to the couple, you know what I mean? Sometimes it can be a little bit harder, or they're just like more posy and they don't want the movement, you know, whereas like we get someone who, you know, works really well with us and gives us all that movement and stuff. It's like we don't even have to talk. We literally can just like stand and just capture like the moments that are happening, and that's what we want. Like we want the photographer to do their thing, you know, get whatever they need to get, and we're capturing like the day like that is, you know, we don't want to be like staging stuff or whatever. But so I think that can sometimes be a little bit challenging, and you know, we can see that sometimes, you know, when we're editing like other people's films, like how that can be you know, how it can be, I guess, like translated into the footage that they have, you know, of depending on what photographer they worked with. So, yeah, it's just something that's interesting.
who would you say is the hardest photographer
Oh,
to work with?
no.
Everybody wants to know. Like,
We'll save that.
Who is it?
We're very, like,
We'll save that for the Burn It to the Ground podcast when we're all out of the industry.
So if you subscribe, you get extra content, and we'll name the paid subscription.
No, but that is a really good point, and I think it's like something for couples to think about. You know, like have you thought about whether your photographer and videographer, do they know each other, or like have they worked together before? Um, it's rare, but like, yeah, there's obviously you've experienced days where there's friction between, photographer and videographer, and it's rare, but it does happen. So I think like that's, maybe like a good thing for couples to think about, is to just make sure that like, if whether you book, like most of the times, photo gets booked first for, but like asking photo for their video recommendations and vice versa, like asking, video if video gets booked first, for their photo recommendations, so that you're going to have like a seamless experience on the day of.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, usually I end with that, like, where do you see yourself question. But what do you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, no, I'm more of the big idea person in our business, and I'm kind of always challenging Steph with new ideas,
I do
and
too.
she does, but sometimes I put a lot on her, and I just want to say like I am very appreciative of my wife.
That's nice. That's that's a good place. I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
I do. I mean,
Well, I mean, look, it takes, right, and I would say that Kim is probably that person in our relationship. She's the one who's kind of thinking like bigger, and thinking like, I don't know. I guess she's the one who's kind of like pushing, and I'm the one who kind of feels like reeling back in. Whether it's based in fear or based in like practicality. Sometimes it's both. But I do think you need like both in the relationship, and I think that can also kind of be, you can be that to each other in different ways too, in like different parts of your life. So it's not like mutual. It's not like one person is always that and one person is always the other. Because, I'll say this, like when when we had kids, I noticed like a big dynamic shift in our relationship, in that I always felt like Kim was definitely the more like, free spirited, like, she was the one who was always like less worried about things. And I always thought that I was like the worrier and like high strung and like all this other stuff. But then once we had kids, there was like this noticeable shift of her being like really like protective of our children and our family. And yeah, I don't know, I just thought that was a really interesting like dynamic shift in our relationship. Was like when we had kids, she was just all of a sudden, this like mama bear came out, that I like had never experienced or seen before.
Yeah, I always say that the kids, like, they bring the best out in you and they also bring the worst out of you. Like, sometimes you don't realize, the lack of patience that you have, and things like that. But they also bring out this like joy and happiness and like love that you've never felt before. So you can kind of have both sides of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the times it's just like I hear about like balance and between like family and work life, and like feel like the way that I like have been looking at it recently is like there really is no like balance to do both. Like I truly feel like that when I'm like being a rock star in our business, like my house, like, you know what I mean? Like my house is down here. Like, like things are like not organized. Maybe the kids aren't happy. Like we're having tantrums. And then when I focus on that, I'm like, okay, that's down. I gotta like bring that back up. And then I'm just like, I haven't touched my inbox in a couple of days. Like I gotta edit to finish tomorrow. And so it's constantly this like pull back and forth. And that's just like, I feel like that's just like the season that we're in, and that we have to like, what we have to do to make it work.
I never feel any of that.
You just always feel like you're on top of everything and it's all getting done.
I will say, like, I've known for a while, like, Steph is a motherly figure, like, she, like, I knew before the kids were here she would be a rock star mom, and she juggles it. She like kind of like plays it down, but she kills it, and like she keeps us on track. And like I'm the least organized person, and she's like involved. Like she trained me to be like super on top of things, and you know she keeps it together. So that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Justin, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking time away from your busy schedule to do this with me. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys had fun and yeah, I would love to have you guys back at some point, and you know, maybe we can kind of follow up in like a year or two and see what's going on.
Thank you so much for
No,
having us.
thanks for
This is
having
really
us.
fun, and I feel like what a cool way to kind of learn from all different people, like in the wedding industry, and just kind of like see how they navigate certain things and like learn certain things. So, and I like love to watch these kind of podcasts as well. So I think it's awesome that you're doing this.
Awesome.
I watched,
I
I watched all the episodes, and some of the guests like Jill and the other guy, the Dalal, what's his name?
Jose.
What's his, Jose. I
Yeah.
watched that thing. He's crazy. That like all these episodes are great. So if you're watching this, watch another one because they're great.
Yeah, I mean, Jill kind of joked in the last episode that I'm like crowdsourcing for like my own like exit plan, and I didn't like consciously, think that, but I don't know. Maybe in a way I am. Maybe I'm, kind of like putting my ear to the ground and seeing what other people are doing. But I don't know. In reality, I don't know. I just this all kind of started as I feel like I needed some sort of outlet separate from wedding photography. And I also just kind of feel like on a wedding day, there are certain vendors that I like really connect with, but feel like I don't have the time to talk to outside of a wedding day. And so I don't know. I just wanted to be able to really talk to people at length. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of us in the wedding industry, particularly photographers and videographers, we share a lot of similarities in our stories, and I don't know. I just felt like there's something to be parsed out of these conversations, and every time I talk to people, I learn something, and I'll get feedback from someone who's listened to it, who comes away with something that I wasn't expecting. So we're just going with it. We're just going to ride this wave, and we'll see what happens. But thank you guys again. I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.